Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, in our previous class on Vedanta and the science of human possibilities, we were discussing about the three bodies, Sthula, Sukshma, and Karana Sharira. That is the gross body, and we have the subtle body. That is one way of classifying, and we have the causal body. In putting brief, the physical body, including the Pancha Pranas, which we also discussed, form the gross body. Pranas also influence the subtle body or the mind, though its impact is felt more on the body. The vital forces, the five pranas, regulate and help us to conduct our activities through the medium of the gross body. So, in a way, this prana, if anything that you do to modify or work on this prana, on one side it works on the gross body, our senses, the different indriyas, and on the other side, prana also has an effect, though it is indirect, on our mind, because mind is, as we had discussed last time, the four functions of the mind which constitute the subtle body. So the subtle body is made of the Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and of course there is the causal body, which is the repository of all our samskaras. So causal, by the very word causal body, Karana Sharira, means there is the very Karana, the very cause why we were born in a particular species, with a particular body, in a particular family, in a particular race. Everything is determined by some causes or karanas or causes. That is why it is known as the causal body. So we can safely assume that this threefold classification, as I said, there is another way we can classify according to the five koshas, but let us now stick to this threefold classification where, as I said last time, we clearly discussed the four functions of the body, so of the mind, so we will not discuss it this time. But the idea of the causal body, the Karana Sharira, what survives death? What survives physical death? By death, I mean death of the prana leaving the body. Death means, in very layman's language, the body is still there. A dead body also, uh, most of the components are still there. But something makes it dead, whereas a few moments ago it was alive. That is prana. So, in common uh, language, in the vernacular Indian language, we say the prana has left the body. So, just as in the Christian and the Semitic traditions, they say the body gave up the spirit. The body doesn't give up the spirit. The spirit gives up the body, or the Sukshma Sharira and the Karana Sharira. The compound of that is what gives up the physical body. And the only link between them is prana. So, what happens to the prana? That was discussed. What happens if the pranas get disassociated with the subtle, with the gross body? The gross body is still there, it is lying. Few moments ago, the prana was animating the whole body, and all the functions were perhaps, if not all, some of the functions were going on. Even in coma, some pranas are still active, responsible for the heartbeat and all those things. One may not be using all the pranas, but then when you say giving up the body, that means the prana leaving the gross body. Where does this prana go? That is one question. Some of the pranas, out of the 5 pranas, we saw only Udana Vayu or Udana Prana is the one prana that acts as a vehicle to transmigrate the causal and the subtle body. The causal body and the subtle body, they don't leave. They are still floating around, if you may use that word. Floating is not the exact word. It's nothing physical. It exists till it gets another physical body. So what happens to the other 4 pranas? They are not needed. They become part of the universal prana. As Swamiji pointed out, the whole universe can be divided into matter and energy. The energy part is the prana, if you say. So energy just merges with the other pranas or the other life forces. They still are there, but they no longer are identified with that particular body which is lying dead now. But does it totally disconnect from the subtle body? That is the question. And the Upanishad answers that the Udana Vayu is the last, I mean, of all the other pranas, Udana is somehow it clings to the subtle body. Now that process differs in different texts. So we do not know exactly how much, whether the whole Udana Vayu, which is anti-gravity, as you know, Udana is that which generates the body heat. That is why I mentioned this earlier. When Sri Ramakrishna went into Samadhi, deep Samadhi, the Ayurvedic physician, if you remember, there was an Ayurvedic physician who was called because allopathic doctors failed. They saw there is no breath, there is no heartbeat. Absolutely all the pranas are not functioning. It was a rare phenomena, at least for Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar, who was an allopath and then he got converted into homeopathy. But still, homeopathy also does not believe in this state of samadhi and all those things. So it was a new revelation for him. He even tested Thakur's eyes. He saw the pupils are not dilating. All the signs, that means all the 4 pranas were practically stopped. I mean, heart itself was stopped. So he was wondering how can this person be revived? Is almost, if they had not known about samadhi, they would have declared him dead. But he had a technique which, if you remember, he applied this technique that Ayurvedic doctor somehow, because Ayurveda believes in a holistic conception of body, prana, mind, all are a holistic unity. We can't just separate. So he had a technique where he used some kind of ghee or some clarified butter and he used to rub on the top of the head and just rub it vigorously and find out if there is any heat. If there is heat, he would say he is in samadhi, he is not yet passed away. It is only when the Udana Vayu leaves, then the disconnection between the subtle body and the gross body is total. So that is, Thakur of course was an exception. He could come back. So the Ayurvedic doctor or the Vaidya who was called, normally he was called to confirm, because it was so difficult, people used to be afraid when Thakur went into Samadhi. No allopathic doctor would believe what he saw. In fact, that's why Mahendralal Sarkar, in the initial stages, he just did not believe that a state such as Samadhi exists. And when it happened, he went and he was very curious to know how can he survive if the heart stops and all the functions stops. of the body is just like an inert, dead body. So that is the explanation that is given, that the jiva, the individual soul, retains the same subtle body here and hereafter. This is a very important concept. So Upanishads say that since they are made of the same material, they are made of, in Sanskrit there is a word known as tanmatras. So they have a gross equivalent and they have a subtle equivalent. The subtle tanmatras are difficult to destroy. If they are destroyed, then one gets moksha. So we have to destroy, I mean, the body. If we want the body not to transmigrate and be born again, Janma Janmantara, that is rebirth, if we want to stop rebirth, the only way is to destroy the subtle body and the causal body. But that is very difficult. Even giving up the gross body does not mean that the subtle body, maybe it will be hanging around for quite a few years till it finds a suitable physical body based on his karana sharira, where the storage of karma, yeah, the chitta is there. The chitta, they say, is that part of the mind which is like the memory zone. It's not just memory, it's not smriti, but it is the samskaras. The subtle impressions are stored there. So Patanjali says these samskaras, they they remain in a potential form, unknown to even the person that he has those samskaras, till it gets the right kind of soil and water. Like for example, the dry dead seed, apparently it is dead, it is dry. You put it in soil, but when the right temperature and the right amount of water falls, even that seed which has been lying for years and years together, suddenly it will start sprouting. So also the samskaras, the karana sharira, it may look very, you cannot recognize what those samskaras are. Only when the suitable environment is available for the jiva, then it manifests itself. So they can be good as well as bad. We know how Valmiki got transformed into a saint. He was a Ratnakar, he was a robber, killed. So apparently from externally if we see, he had a character or his character was so bad, or that he was literally nobody could believe that there would be a transformation. But no transformation is possible according to the Upanishads if those samskaras are not already there. They were covered by evil tendencies. Some of the evil tendencies worked out, and when they worked out, the noble samskaras which were hidden. So it can work either way. A noble person can suddenly become evil because of the predominance of the evil samskaras in the Karana Sharira. So Karana Sharira is something which is not so easily accessible. We can do some kind of research or maybe self-introspection into our minds, which is the Sukshma Sharira. But Karana Sharira is known, Karana Sharira can be read, Karana Sharira can be erased, Karana Sharira can be modified only by people who belong to the category of avataras or great spiritual personalities who have access to this Karana Sharira. It's like something, if you want to modify the whole software of a computer, it's not enough if you know how to operate it. You need some basic knowledge of the very nature of that software. And if you make modifications, then the whole system changes, processes change. So something similar to that. It's not exactly like that, but it's only incarnations and great saints through their satsang or through their touch or through their grace, they have access to the Karana Sharira of jivas. Otherwise, it is very difficult for ordinary. We can just make a guess based on your experience, based on the mental states of that jiva, by observing him, observing his characteristics, and you can predict you should do this, you should do that. That is how the guidance is given normally by human gurus. But it's only an avatar. That is why Swamiji said the greatest miracle is not materializing some objects as many of the gurus do. It's supposed to be very, very rudimentary when it comes to spiritual life. Because we are dealing with the gross objects. To materialize a gross object or to read somebody's mind or to have developed some kind of intuition is totally basic. But avatars not only can influence your Sthula Sharira and also the Sthula Jagat as well as the gross universe, but they can also change if necessary the Sukshma Sharira and also the Karana Sharira, which normal people cannot access. So we need somebody who has transcended these three Shariras and who can influence the Karana Sharira or change the Karana Sharira. So they can undergo, the Jiva can undergo permanent transformation. Once Holy Mother was asked by one of her disciples, I am doing japa for such a long time. Japa is one method, or any sadhana is a method to effect transformations in our Karana Sharira. So many times the effect of japa is not seen on the gross body, not perceivable on the gross and the subtle body. Even there may be some mental change in your moods, change in habits, change in the amount of peace you have. Those things are externally can be measured. But what happens to your Karana Sharira? How does the japa or the mantra transform the Karana Sharira? That is not known. And that is why people don't believe. They said, I've been doing japa for so many years now, nothing apparently is happening. I'm the same person with same diseases, same issues, physical issues. Mentally, maybe I'm a little more peaceful, but I want some drastic change. People are restless, but they don't realize that the change that happens in a very subtle way. It's very difficult to understand how the sadhana or the avatara or the name of name of a deity can transform the Karana Sharira. That's one of its main functions. Certain things which we don't know about ourselves. We know our minds to a certain extent. We know our body also. We are well informed what are our diseases, what are our strengths. But we rarely know what baggage of karma we have brought along with us. What is our future? How much progress I will make? So naturally, sadhakas, very impatient sadhakas used to ask Holy Mother, Mother, I've been doing japas. Many of them she had initiated when they were very young. They had grown up and then they felt that I have been doing japa very sincerely, perhaps morning and evening as Mother has instructed, but nothing is happening. So Mother gave a wonderful idea because there was no easier way to explain what transformation has taken place if the jiva is not able to perceive it. If I don't perceive that there is a definitive change in my samskaras, in the karana sharira, I will not believe. I will just see that my mind is almost the same, body is almost the same. I'm the same person. Maybe I've grown a little old, but what has japa done to me? So mother gives an example, and we can't give a better example than that, or a simpler example than that. She tells, my child, if you are sleeping in a room, so such a nice example. She says, if you are sleeping in the room and you are fast asleep and without making any noise, somebody lifts the whole cord and transports you to another room. So you have changed places, you have changed the room, but you are not aware. When you get up, you suddenly find you are in a different room. So how did that happen? So the changes in your spiritual Karana Sharira or changes in your personality, that takes place as silently as this. That is what she was saying. Just have faith and continue and do your sadhana. If you do japa at the right time, If you are totally awake, because now you are in a state of sleep, you don't know what progress you are making. Sleep not in the regular sense, not as in you go to the bed, we go to our bed and sleep. It's not like that. We are ignorant, we are not fully awake to our spiritual realities. That is what is meant by sleep. If we are not aware of our spiritual reality, we are asleep, even if though we may be awake. We are awake to the world, but not awake to the world of the spirit. So this is what Upanishad says, that at death only the gross body is left behind, clothed with the subtle body, and the individual soul departs. It is the subtle body that conveys the individual soul, the jiva, in his migration to the other world. It endures, it stays until he attains the final liberation. The Brahma Sutra says this can be confirmed by Brahma Sutras, as you know, they are the essence of the Upanishads. Certain Upanishadic passages have been compressed into sutras so that people can understand. It says, Tad tad apit tadapiteha means tad apiteha samsara vyapadeshat. What does it mean? Tat that to the till one attains up to the attainment of Brahman or moksha. Samsara, because scriptures declare they are in a state of samsara or relative existence. Samsara means that which moves, that which migrates. Samsarati. Sarati means moves. Sara means move. So we call this samsara because it moves, because it changes. It's not steady, it is not eternal, it's not permanent. It keeps changing, transforming. So because of its very nature, transformative nature, the subtle body continues to catch fresh gross bodies, their birth after birth, till final liberation, till the jiva's oneness with Brahman. That means still it realizes that it is not the subtle body, it's the ego also vanishes, the mind also merges in Brahman, not only the body, and it can happen even when one has the body, one can get totally disconnected. As it happened in case of Thakur Samadhi. What Dr. Sarkar found was the body was dead. All the pranas were disconnected with the subtle body. They have disconnected themselves with the gross, but it was done voluntarily. It's not in death, it is happens forcibly. We are not in control of it. That's why we say the person is dead. But in samadhi, that subtle body, for a moment it is disassociated. But they say Udana Vayu still connects. That's why it comes back. That prana doesn't leave the body. That's the difference between giving up the physical body and going into samadhi. Otherwise, the state or the signs that a person in samadhi which he shows, like Sri Ramakrishna, practically all the signs, breathing stops, heart stops, everything stops. So how does the body survive? That is the question. So they say this transmigratory, the Brahma Sutra says, Brahma Sutra, that is number 4, 2 and 8. That's 4, 2 and 8. So throughout this period, this transmigratory period, the jivas, the soul's gross body is renewed according to the karma. Now you may ask, there is no fixed time limit when the body is born. It all depends on how much karma he has done, what is his karma, where does he deserve to get a new body, which family. Like Gita says, if a person is doing yoga or is performing sadhana, and Arjuna asks if he suddenly dies, will all his sadhana go waste? That was his question, and he says, no, it doesn't go waste. It is carried in the subtle body, and only it has to wait till it gets a proper gross body where it can fructify or work out that karma. So the same subtle body persists. So the subtle body doesn't change. The gross body may change, but the subtle body, the subtle sanskaras, you may ask what happens, why that new jiva with the old mind and the old karana sharira Why does he not remember his previous birth? Because the smritis, it's like the smritis or the tendencies remain, but you may say something like the RAM of the computer. The RAM, whatever is there, you can keep on removing that, and that goes away, but the original software is still there. It is something similar to that. So that short-term memory, the memory of the past life goes. But there are cases where one can recollect if one is, uh, as Krishna says, tells Arjuna, I remember all my previous births. You were also reborn, but you don't remember, and I remember. What does it mean? That memory is normally erased. That memory of the past, only the samskaras tendencies remain. But he has to work out. Those tendencies cannot vanish. Whatever is there in the Karana Sharira and the Sukshma Sharira is carried to the next birth. As I told you, there are this fourfold function of the mind. So you may say the manas portion, the reactive mind, all the samskaras which are superficial are deleted because they just are needed for a functioning mind. But the buddhi, the development of buddhi, the spiritual growth, that buddhi means a refined mind, a discriminative mind. That discriminative mind is still there. So that child may be born as a fool or in a very poor family or a very family which is where spiritual practices are not uh, done by the whole family. But somehow his samskaras will make him, like you see Prahlada, the same thing happened. He was born in an Asuric family, but the old samskaras made him do sadhana. So there's no reason to believe that he has to be born in a suitable environment. Whatever be the environment, his Karana Sharira and his Sukshma Sharira, including the Buddhi and the little bit of ego, Ahankara and all those things, the remnants of that will be taken over, will be carried over, you can say, to the next birth. Then he says, the throughout this period, the Jiva's gross body is renewed according to the fructification of his karma. But the same subtle body permits. The external body will undergo transformation. It will decay, it will merge with the elements, gross elements. Nothing of that body will be left. If it is burnt, it will be turned into ashes. But in any case, the body will disintegrate. The transformation will not take place in the subtle body. It has to take up a new body. That is the idea that people may ask this question. Suppose I die, can I not continue my sadhana in the subtle body? It's much more easier. No headache, no pains, no diseases. Just stay in the subtle body and go on doing sadhana till you get mukti. But it is not possible. It is not so easy because many of the karmas are gross. They have to be uh, enjoyed or suffered by taking up a new suitable body. That's what it says. The same, according to the fructification of his karma, the body may change. The place, geographical location, the race, many things can change. You may be born in some other country, other geographical location. You may be born in another species or another race. Normally, it doesn't happen unless one has a huge backlog of bad karma. He does not go back, regress. They call it regression. He doesn't regress into an animal body. It is very, very rare. But the scriptures do not rule out that. But normally, he is born as a human being, either better or worse, depending on the karma. He has done a lot of evil karma and he has got away with it in this birth. Somehow he will take up a body where he will have to atone for the whatever bad karma he has done. So the same subtle body persists, but the gross body undergoes transformation because either it is useless to him after a certain period when the soul finds that this body is not suitable enough to work out his karma, he just throws it, like changing clothes. And the clothes become torn or worn out, Gita says, just as we change our clothes, similarly we change our bodies. A stage comes in every jiva's life where the present body and the present set of and the circumstances, environmental situation does not permit him to work out his karma. So it's not that he voluntarily commits suicide, but somehow situation is created where he either dies young or maybe he is keen to be born and work out his karma because after a certain age they say that's why people, really spiritual people, they don't want to live long. Of course they don't commit suicide, but they feel that as the age advances, if one's orientation is totally spiritual, I'm not talking of worldly people, they will definitely like to live as long as possible with the hope that they will enjoy what they have earned. Very often they don't do it, but they at least hope. But whereas spiritual people find that if this body is not able to do sadhana, if it is this body is giving more trouble, then they wish that let me be born again, if at all I have to be born, so that I can earn mukti. But it's not always the case. You see, there's a beautiful incident in the life of one of the Holy Mother's disciples, Swami Ananda. Mother, as I told you, these people could see the karma of their disciples and give a, I mean, they could see through the Karana Sharira, the samskaras, and she told him, it's a very famous example. She told Ananda, he was asking, Mother, by your grace, I can surely get mukti in this birth. Please bless me. She says, my dear child, according to what I see, you need 3 more births to get mukti. But there was a condition. Said, if you want mukti in this life, you'll have to suffer because your karma you have to work out. Maybe there will be a lot of suffering. So then he immediately said, I don't care. Let me suffer. And in fact, you see the last so many years of his life, he was bedridden and suffering. But he was happy that at least I'll be free. So it's not always that people want a. He did not mind. He did not even complain that he was in Banaras hospital for a long time. His Sevak, who is one of the vice presidents of our order, told us many times we never heard him saying, "Oh, enough." I just see people when they are really sick, they are helpless, they are bedridden. Normally, they would express a desire that they don't want to live any longer, but not with people. So it's not always true that the Jiva may think if this is the last birth, let me just continue. At the most, the suffering will be for a few years or few decades, but at least it will give me permanent liberation. So he deliberately asked Mother, he said, doesn't matter, no matter how much suffering I have to endure, but let me finish off this life. I don't want to take chances and come and work out my karma in 2 more lives. So it's the gross body, this Brahma Sutra says. Now there is one important sutra, 421. It's a simple, apparently it's a very simple sutra, 421, 11. It says the bodily heat which is being generated by prana. As you know, there are 5 pranas. One prana is responsible for our lung movement, breathing, circulation, digestion. There are so many pranas. Apana, which forces things out of the body. It's a downward force, gravitational force. So these are 5 different forces. But there is one prana, Udana, which if you remember, we had discussed in great detail, which is responsible for generating heat. It's a great miracle that our body, no matter what the external temperature is, even if it is extremely hot or extremely cold, the temperature is always maintained. So that function is done by Udana. So this Brahma Sutra says the body is warm. Warm means at a particular temperature, as long as it lives, and cold when it dies. So this is a very simple observation. When you touch a dead body, it is absolutely cold. The Udana Vayu has left. That's why in Thakur's case, that Vaidya, doctor, Ayurvedic doctor, is to touch the forehead where he could, if he could feel the heat, that means the heat is still there. As long as Udana Vayu is there, he used to assure the devotee that he is going to be he'll be okay in samadhi. Maybe the other pranas are suspended for some time. But as soon as he comes down from samadhi, again all the functions will start. So he says, but in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, this is Prashna Upanishad 3:9. He says the body is warm. Brahma Sutra says the body is warm as long as it lives and cold when it dies. It's a very simple sutra. But future in the it says Tejo Hava Udana. Udana is a prana. It is also known as Vayu. So prana or Vayu, it is the same. Pancha Vayu, Vayavaha, or Pancha Prana. So whichever way you call it, the classification is that it is the fivefold vital forces animating the body. So he says in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when all the physical functions and the mental, see Nirvikalpa Samadhi is only when the Karana Sharira is also non-functioning. Bodily heat still serves as the only index of livingness of life. All other functions stop. But that is not very common. It's only for people who enter into the state of samadhi. So he says, we see this has been demonstrated in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. Of the five pranas, it is only the udana which is responsible for maintaining heat in the body. And as long as that is there, the person is still, there's a flimsy connection between the body and the mind. Because Sri Ramakrishna, till his Mahasamadhi, went into samadhi so many times, but always he came, most of the times, all the time before Mahasamadhi came back. Only when Mahasamadhi, it happened in nearly midnight, and early in the morning they called the doctor. The doctor, after touching, he said, no, that is cold. So the Udana is left now. He declared, nobody was ready to even think that Thakur is Sri Ramakrishna has passed away. Because they were not sure. Many times it has happened, he has practically in samadhi has lost all the pranas have stopped functioning. Many times it has happened. So Udana is which is responsible. Tejo Hava Udana. Fire means the heat is Udana. It functions till the last. It attends on the departing soul. So Udana Vayu is our companion. All other pranas will just vanish. Because if you don't have heartbeat, then you don't need samana. If you don't have a nervous system which is functioning, then you don't need vyana prana. Vyana prana has stopped because the nervous system is not functioning. As I told you, the whole nervous energy is known as vyana vayu. Then samana, that is the digestion. Your food is not getting digested. The body is lying dead. So what will that prana do? So all the pranas go away except Udana till he is completely dead. So that's why maybe for doctors it is very difficult to declare a person dead. Very often we have found that there are rules keep on changing from country to country. How long, when is a person known as brain dead? They call brain dead, heart stop, sometimes they are revived. So whether it is 2 hours, 4 hours, we don't know in different conditions. Sometimes, in very rare cases, the body is revived. Not because the person was in samadhi or something, but even biologically he was not dead, contrary to the doctor's opinion. So anyway, when the body loses all its heat, that is how they define death. The departing soul, the only prana which becomes a companion, other pranas along with the body they vanish. They don't, body says I don't need you all. I mean, they vanish. But the Udana is the companion to the Sukshma Sharira. That goes, that's the only prana that goes with the, it's attends on the departing soul. They in fact say it is like a vehicle. On Udana Vayu, our soul or the Sukshma Sharira and the Karana Sharira is floating around or moving around in space till it gets a new body. The subtle body is the repository of all subtle forces developed by the organs and the mind which belong to it. Whatever capacity, whatever tendency, good or evil, A person acquires remain in the subtle body as potencies. Now this is important. When you take a spring and wind the spring, you might have seen in those old clocks where you had to use the key and tighten the spring, and then the spring will slowly release. So first you have to give it energy, go on turning till it is tight, and then remove the key, and then the potential energy turns the clock. Then when it is almost fully, that energy is released, again you have to give it periodically, you have to give the key. That was how this. So these potencies, when the soul departs, they survive in the Karana Sharira as potencies. They are not functional anymore because there is no body, but the energy is not lost. So even the good and bad tendencies, they may be good and bad actions, but each good and bad action has created a good and bad tendency which survives. Good and bad actions will go away with the body. Suppose a person has killed many people. The action of killing is over. Now the body is dead. He can kill no more. But what will happen to his actions? Will they vanish? If they had vanished, then there is no question of karma. Everybody would have done whatever he liked, killed as many people as possible, as long as he is not caught and put into jail. And he would have got away with it. But it doesn't happen because every time some action we do, good or bad, it is stored in the form of potencies, in latent form. So it's not just the physical actions, our perceptions, our thoughts, our feelings, and desires, they are all accumulated in latent form. With all these contents, the subtle body attends the soul as it passes out of the gross body. These subtle forces, being prevalent in due course, determine the individual journey thereafter. So our future journey, it's not indeterminate. If it was random and if it is just luck where we will be born, it's not so. Everything, the soul gets only that which he deserves. So you can't complain. There, Duryodhana, this is also a famous example from Mahabharata. He complains to Krishna. He tells, Janami dharmam nachame pravruti. I know what dharma is, but I don't know how to follow it. I tried my best, but I'm always doing adharma. I know what is adharma and I should not follow it, but I still can't. Nachame nivruti. I can't give up. So these are the latent tendencies which make that person act. So you can't blame. Duryodhana cannot blame. He actually tried to put the whole blame on Krishna. He said, you should have guided me, in the sense, you should have given me the strength to follow dharma. It's not that I did not know dharma. I was taught by the same Guru. Pandavas and Yudhishthira also was taught by the same Guru. But don't blame me. It is you were blaming Krishna, saying that I know what is dharma, but why did I not? I was not able to follow it. Not that I didn't know, I was not ignorant. I knew what I am doing is evil. It's unjust. Similarly, I know what is adharma, what is wrong, what is evil, but I can't desist from following it. So this is explained only through accumulated tendencies, which will force you to do things in spite of your will to the contrary. You don't want to do it, but the tendencies will push you. They will push you to do exactly what. That's why they say your whole life is habit. If it is habit, then you have to change the habit by counter habits. That's the whole secret behind our sadhana. In sadhana, what we are doing is we are creating counter habits. We do not know how many uh, in our Karana Sharira, how many bad habits are there. So maybe we have to do more japa than some other person, or maybe we have to do very less compared to others. We do not know what baggage of karma we have come with. So to nullify it, to cancel it, we have to go on doing and wait for the grace. Grace is nothing but your own effort which wipes out your karma. And it's like Thakur used to say, the wind is always blowing, but at least you have to raise the sails. Otherwise, how will it blow? So also with all these contents, the subtle body attends the soul, but it accompanies the soul as it passes off the gross body. These subtle forces, be prevalent in due course, determine the individual's journey hereafter. He is born with them, with some of them needing concrete forms for their fructification. See, most of them are not used. It's like in a mobile, there are hundreds of functions, but till you need to use them, you don't use them. It may be have the potential to do many things, but we don't use them. Similarly, the body, suppose a child, he has to work out some samskaras. He has to wait, he has to grow till he can work out some other samskaras. Some samskaras he can work out in childhood, but many he cannot. So he has to wait. He needs concrete physical forms to express sense organs. Suppose somebody is born blind for some reason due to some samskara, but you can see he can do many things which normal people cannot do because that was the backlog. Perhaps that made him blind and he could remember many things. His memory was good, his sense of sound was good. He could identify sounds much more than a normal person. So there are certain uh, samskaras and the sense organ of ear had lot of karma to be worked out. So perhaps that's the reason. This is just a crude example, but this is how perhaps it works because he has lot of audible material he has to work out. If his eyes are open, he'll be distracted. If he's born blind, then his whole focus is on the hearing. So the psychophysical constitution of every jiva is shaped by the subtle forces which are conveyed by the subtle body from its previous incarnation or several incarnations, that is several lives. It's not one life samskaras. Maybe 10 lives before you have done something and that tendency was waiting in your Sukshma Sharira. As soon as you got the body, and the child, when you were growing up, you could not work that out. Maybe you have to wait till you become an adult or to become an old man to work it out. So the sanskaras don't vanish, even if you wish. The only way it can vanish is through sadhana. As Holy Mother again gives a wonderful example. Somebody asked, suppose I have done a lot of evil things in the past, as you said, they will have to work out that karma. So how do I atone for that? Can I not get away? Can God not help me? He said, definitely. That's why you have to do japa, you have to do sadhana. Because she gives that example. If the sword wound was due because of your karma, perhaps somebody would have hit you with a sword and killed you, or maybe wounded you. He said, you may not get that, but you may escape with just a pinprick. That much change can be done through your own efforts, through sadhana. But that little karma has to be worked out. At least the pinprick will be there, but it will be bearable. So then it's not that our karma we have to endure. So everything is hopeless. Whatever we do, no, we can use the present opportunity if we have the wisdom to undermine our samskaras or to see that they don't fructify, especially the bad samskaras. They don't get a chance to fructify. So you have 5 minutes. So the subtle body is also another name which it is also known as Linga Sharira, Sukshma or Linga Sharira. Why it is known as Linga Sharira? Linga means symbol. So it determines how the gross body works. So Linga Sharira is responsible for our Sthula Sharira. So that's why that is another name. And it not only uh, reflects the past but also determines our future. So any person who's born with special qualities, special talents, you can explain through the inherent tendencies of the previous one. So if there are some questions you can ask, otherwise I will take leave. There's one question in the chat. Uh, the question is, are samskaras only sthula sharira, gross sensory physical, and sukshma sharira, psychological emotional levels, or can it be causal sharira based too? If so, then can we really do what can we really do any karma on the physical levels to exhaust them? Thanks. Yeah, it is at all the three levels. As I told you, samskaras are formed at the gross level. They are formed that if you indulge in bad thoughts, it is a sukshma sharira which is functioning. But if you are doing bad actions, it is the sthula sharira. And you are asking about the karana sharira. Yes, karana sharira also you are creating samskaras. Because when you do sadhana, especially when you do upasana or sadhana, the mantra has a mantra or the prayer or uh, whatever sadhana of God you do, spiritual sadhana you do, it is aimed at the karana sharira. So you definitely create karma. So when you do japa, though it is a, some people may repeat it loudly, it is sthula japa. That is why they say sthula japa, shouting loudly, say Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. That is good, but it is the lowest form. It is sthula. If you do it mentally, it is sukshma. But when you persistently do it and intuitively the mantra becomes spontaneous, then it affects the karana sharira and the karana karma. So you are doing karma both at the physical level, mental level, and even at the karana level. So that is your question. I think you got the answer for that. So we can change that also. Just as we can change our body by taking medicines, nutrition, and other things. We can change our mind and its samskaras by good thoughts, satsang and all. Similarly, we can, through our sadhana, destroy the effects of our past karma. As Holy Mother said, maybe instead of a sword wound, a pin prick, we can get away with that. That is working out our karana, uh, in working out our karma at the karana level, at the causal level. Okay. Can the karma be addressed in the transit state? And if we make a choice in this form not to return, no, no. They say if we will come to that, we will. The question is, in the transit state of transition, can we do our sadhana? Now there are different views. Uh, there is a view known as Krama Mukti, where you go to a certain level. For such people, they just wait to exhaust. They have not much physical karma, then they will not, or they don't have any physical karma. So maybe in that case, from the subtle level itself, they can escape. But these cases are very rare. They say it is no, very important to get the human body. It is rare. First of all, it is rare. So three things are rare according to Shankaracharya. One is to be born in a human body. So even those souls, if they want to expedite, they want quick mukti, then they will prefer to be born. Because you can work out the karma faster. That is the idea. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Namaste.